Hello and welcome to Making It Easy to Be Human podcast. I'm Dr. Manijeh Motaghy, founder of Perfectly Here and author of It's Not Easy to Be Human. In this podcast, we explore systemic, environmental, and developmental challenges shaping our lives and share practical insights and tools to help make it easier to be human. I'm joined by my co hosts, Mary Aroyan, licensed psychotherapist, and Matthew Law, university lecturer, mindfulness practitioner, and advocate, board member, and advisor. Today, we're discussing how today's world affects young people, their sense of stability, identity, belonging, and some inner qualities and skills that they can develop to navigate both their internal disharmony and external chaos with confidence and clarity. Hello, Matthew and Mary. Thank you for joining me as both co hosts and guests today. And we have this topic of our youth, how they live this life today in the past decade, all the changes that have occurred and keep occurring, all the wars around the world and disharmony, demonstrations and laws changing, ways of living and working has changed a lot, education has changed a lot, connection has changed a lot. So I'd like to just give you guys a few moments, minutes to just set this thing up for us from your perspective. If you like to go, Mary, we um, would like to hear from you.
I think there's a lot that we can cover on that topic and so many broad, like it could just veer off in so many different directions. But I think overall, what I've been seeing lately too is this maybe bridging the gap between generations to understand because I feel like the culture nowadays is kind of dropping everything that's happened or has happened in the past, or like discrediting other generations for things, but recognizing that all things kind of cause and effect up until this point, right? And like history and everything, and in order to understand how to move better in the future, if we understand what's happened more so, and collectively work together, right? Yes, I understand our generations have also wreaked havoc on the planet, right? But they've also done good things. And so now working all together and bridging that gap of disconnect or the difference, right? Heritage, culture, history all matters, right? And understanding that can maybe give us more opportunity to work through the problems and be closer together to understand that we all kind of have the same intentions, or we can have the same intentions. That's one aspect. I mean, then there's like the generational value system that they have more so now, and the things they prioritize can be different from what we're accustomed to.
Hmm. Yeah, that's great. Yeah, thank you. Matthew, you have experience with youth at home and you're in your classes. Give us the picture.
I think when you're um, talking to younger people and just adults, even about their own childhood and how they were raised, a few things come to mind. One of them is that every sibling had a different experience. This is really important to have that frame. Like, so there's different times and situations in the world, and when they were existing and when they were born compared to their other siblings and their parents in their own life. Some children are born in winter. Some children may be raised in a hot climate, and then the parents have moved to a cooler climate. Different school situations. What happens when you're in different classes and facing different challenges from different types of personalities that you go to school with? These are all really important. But one of the most important things I always try to talk to the youth about is that all these situations and how people develop, came from a place of love. Younger parents trained to struggle giving attention or making their baby or child not to cry may inadvertently give them a lot of screen time on an iPad.
Mm.
They may give them the wrong types of food to just make sure that they're happy, or maybe their stomach's upset. These They may give them a lot more attention around being independent or freedom when it comes to certain activities that they want to do. These all come from places of love. And in many cases, sometimes the consequences or unintended outcomes may be very different from what the parents expected as well. So it's really important for us as adults to also unpack that as well, and to understand and have some sort of empathy and compassion for the situations that the parents themselves found in at that time as well.
Yes, yes, yes. You know, you remind me of something. I was at this one retreat, silent retreat in Canada in the middle of snow, and it was so peaceful and quiet. And um, during our break time, we could do, take care of things and go for walks and stuff. In the library, I found a book called The Diary of the Wimpy Kid, and I never seen it before. It was my first time seeing it. I picked it up and I started reading it, and my goodness, it was so funny to me. I couldn't stop laughing, and I mean, it was a silent retreat. We weren't supposed to be, making noise, but it was so incredibly, powerful that this kid was so self-oriented, just thinking about himself. Everything, all the logic was to his benefits that he had. All the stories he had was around how he's not happy and what's going to happen to make him happy. But it was funny in a way. So the coordinator saw that I loved it. She offered it. She said, "Take it, manager, take it with you." So I brought it home. I read it. I talked about it to people. Do you know about this? Do you know? And a lot of people knew about this. I didn't. And it made me feel a little bit self-conscious about being a parent. Like, what, how come I don't know about this? Where was I when my kids were growing up? Was I too busy? How come I don't know about this book? And it was very, kind of making me a little bit, uh, yeah, guilt trips. And so I called my son. I said, "Do you know about this book?" He said, "Yes." But no, during my time, that wasn't the book. We were reading Goosebumps and these other things. So, it's not easy to be a parent and to know everything that's a norm or shared, especially when you are an immigrant to any country, especially when there are some norms that people, practice in their home and the neighbor doesn't practice them. I mean, it's just not easy. So I was happy to know that it wasn't my fault. That didn't exist during my kids growing up, which is a while ago. So, but I'm just, also curious, Mary, when you're as a therapist, you have all these clients, do you have youth that come to you, and what are their similar, thread of complaints or anxieties or worries, or what have you seen that is shared with them amongst them?
I mean, the typical things that run through, for everyone, the growing pains, right? The disconnect from their parents, possibly, or the conflicts that come, right? Because maybe lack of communication or understanding. A lot that I've noticed comes up with insecurity, self-consciousness with their appearance, with how they're perceived, right? I think social media has really amplified the way a person's supposed to look, a certain lifestyle they're supposed to adopt, right? And if you don't have it, right, what does that mean for you? And it's a different culture because they're not as connected. I mean, they might want to see each other and everything, right? But it's so technologically driven that I think it's hard to piece together that emotional thing for them, that need, the importance of it, right? Or that vulnerability that can come with that connection as well. So it's it's a lot of, I feel like, a facade of what is supposed to be perceived versus what actually is, and helping them find that comfort and trust and freedom in being able to be the person, they want to be versus what's accepted, what's not canceled, what's the attractive, what gets you more followers, what's this, what, you know what I mean? And it's just um finding that balance more so, or allowing the freedom for that balance without feeling, like you're consumed by all the negative feedback that comes with that.
Hmm.
I hope that makes sense.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. What about you, Matthew? What do you see that is shared troubles with youth?
I think the biggest thing that I see a lot of, with the youth is the pursuit of perfectionism.
Mm,
People do realize that perfectionism is not possible, it's something that's unattainable, but it's a nervous system stuck in this endless pursuit of always looking for attention, or not so much even attention, but reassurance. Um, that I think that there's a sense of how I need to be perfect so I can feel safe. And if things aren't perfect and aren't exactly how they should be, then I'm not going to be safe. I'm going to be in danger, or things aren't going to be. Someone's going to be upset or angry with me. And so there is a lot of work we do around being comfortable to say that things aren't going well. We things are not. Um, Things need to improve. There's been some issues, and how do we still remain safe and listen and work towards something that's better? So, it's this endless loop of suffering and trying to get out of that. So I think perfectionism is what I really see. And I'm sure you have a lot of thoughts around this as well, about part of the elements of making it easy to be human is to allow people to be, uh, it's okay to be scared. It's okay to be failing. It's okay to be learning, and we can all do that together.
mm. Yeah, thank you for that. Yeah. Yes, so we've been all practicing to develop ourselves alongside everybody else. It's just not, we're not on autopilot in a way that nature would have it, you know? We run autopilot, our brain puts us there so that supposedly we make less mistakes, and once we learn something, we don't forget. The brain takes care of it, and we don't have to be using too much energy and be more efficient. But that works for all these other, creatures, that they have a set instinctual sort of programming about them. And they go about doing what they're supposed to do, the hunting and keeping safe and eating and staying alive until being eaten, but but we have to learn everything, and it's so difficult for us. But then when we learn something that is false, like this idea of perfection, there is no perfection. It is not possible. Perfection, is not possible due to the changing uh, sort of quality of everything. Everything is always changing. How could there be perfection? What is that perfection? Does it mean solid, nothing changing? Once I got it perfectly, placed. it wouldn't change, or I know exactly what to do all the time. But even that perfection is just something made up that our mind keeps making things up, and it comes from that uh, not being explained properly and fully from childhood, from infancy, that we begin to interpret, assume, fill in the blank with things we don't know, we don't understand. And that becomes such a good skill. We assume away our lives, assume that perfection is a thing, is an actual thing, and we want to accomplish it. And we constantly fail at it because it's not possible. Everything is changing all the time. So there are other things that we could actually learn, other skills and understandings we could have that would allow us to not have to be perfect, but go with the flow, be able to go with the flow of change. What do you think of this, either of you? Yeah.
I agree. I mean, everything is just kind of pumping into these personas that people are creating for themselves, right? And it's like everything is on a screen or usually involves a screen, or you're being it's like, what are the odds of not being recorded nowadays? Doing something, being somewhere, right? Like, I mean, remember that story with that whole couple that got caught infidelity on a jumbotron? You get what I'm saying? Like, everything is everywhere now. Everything is easily accessible. And for people, like, piggybacking on that perfectionism, right? This persona, this insecurity, this inferiority that can come if you are flawed, if you don't look a certain way and everything else. And you're constantly just trying to feed that, right? So that disconnect, that gap of disconnect just gets so further and further apart that, yeah, let's bring it back to, you are flawed. We all are flawed. But that doesn't mean we're bad people for it, or that's the end of everything. It means you're can be a better, stronger person, a better version of yourself by allowing it and working through, because there's no one exempt from it, right? No one exempt from it. I don't care what you're portraying on the screen. Every single one of us has those negative, that loop, right? The negative thoughts that come up, or the insecurities, the fears, the anxieties, all of these things that come up, sadness, and it's I think we just need to make it a lot more comfortable for people to just be with it, right? And it's like, imagine how much strength you encourage, you can inspire for someone else by showing them that, it's okay to do it, and I'm better for it. But how do we get them to all hear us is the biggest question.
Oh man. What are your thoughts, Matthew, on perfection?
Well, I think part of making it easy to be human and in the lens of perfection or is creating the container for failure, which is really about learning.
Hmm.
And really good analogy is sports. You watch a basketball game, NBA, sometimes the matches are 81 points to 80. That means that during a game, there was a huge number of missed shots, missed opportunities, failures, blocks. The team scored against you, and that's life. Tennis is another really good example. The number one tennis players still statistically lose almost 50% of the time in matches. So you have to have this resilience to be number one about embracing failure and being able to learn from when things aren't going right. And I think that's what's really important here for us to be teaching the youth to have that container and to not only understand and learn from it, but also to allow it and to speak about it amongst each other. We're in this society on social media where everything is all curated, and I think we're kind of now going into this discussion where we need to take the mask off. And the mask off means not everything has to be Instagram worthy. or a great post, but we need to also talk about what we're really afraid of and where we're not doing very well and where we're learning and failing at the same time. And that's how you become number one in these top sports and top areas, by not only acknowledging that, but working with it.
Hmm. Hmm. So, what I'm hearing, if we can interpret those things into some skills, inner skills that we could have, I'm hearing authenticity, vulnerability, and also being able to see everything is changing and passing anyway. We can't rely on the perfect picture, because then we have to keep ourselves committed to that picture, and we change. We cannot stay youthful or exactly the best way. And once we make a commitment to that picture, then a lot of anxiety and stress follows for us to hold it, to hold this image up constantly. And then the picture could be made up in our imagination, that we need to look like that or be like that. And so I always want to kind of think of it as developmental, like qualities and skills, so that we can develop, not just talk about them as theoretical or conceptual or even spiritual or something, but to become it, to live it. And living it requires our brain to accommodate that, our brain to wire for it, to have the neural pathways for it. So we don't have the good thing about being on autopilot. Perfect. When it's a new trait and it's effective and it's in alignment with what the truth of life is, systems that, natural systems, natural patterns that govern us. If it's in alignment with that and it's on autopilot, perfect. It's good. These skills, they will sustain us. They will help us move with more, ease and well-being. One of the things, I think, one of the skills is just one of the things to know about ourselves is that our brain is constantly shifting and changing, and our brain opts to accept something we think as the truth, because unless it's trained to have alternative thinking, self analysis, bias detection, if it's not trained and not told that, look, the children, look, baby, sweetheart, you have, your brain is gonna think for you, believe what you think is true. And then there are emotions that show up, right? Like anger. Anger is an emotion. When that emotion shows up, it's not comfortable, it's not happy. It makes you believe what you're thinking is true. So you know this, so you should know this. Just know this about yourself. And then this person knowing this about themselves, they won't take it so seriously every time they feel threatened and angry. And then another lesson, the follow would be watch them for yourself. Watch them and see when the anger is done, and your story. What happens to the story? When you're okay and happy, that story that you had about your mom or your friend or whatever, it dissipated. It went away. So it wasn't absolute. It wasn't solid and unchanging. Look, this is how it happens. And so giving, ourselves, I mean, I'm not a children expert, and often people say, manager, you should bring this to schools from childhood. And I'm thinking, oh my God, do I have to go get another degree, psychology degree, to be have that kind of authorization to talk about these things for children? But I think it's adults, us, we can learn them. We've been there, we have experience, we know how world works, we know how, when you talk condescending to somebody, they don't like it, they're gonna retaliate. We have experience, right? And we can see that, oh, if you're kinder, more respectful, not assuming and judgmental, it may actually work better. Test it for yourself. See how it works, you know? So I think that's our role, that we've been working on these things to bring into the world, each of us, to people who will listen, who are interested. Even if they don't listen, we can be the one, kind of like model that quality that we would like for them to kind of look at. Oh, I like that, for themselves to look and see. Oh, I like that. How is she doing that, or how is he doing that? I like that because that looks like it could be useful, you know?
I think it makes such a difference, and regardless of whatever the age gap is between me and whoever's in the room with me, I
Mm.
think that's what is it eliminates pretty much that gap when you are totally present with them, when you're just trying to understand them. There is no judgment. I'm not here to show you, oh, just because I'm older than you, literally could be your parent in some of these cases, right? Like, I mean, I don't see children, younger children. It's more like adolescents and mainly adults, really. But that gap doesn't exist when you are fully present with them and when they feel like they are being seen, right? Like at the end of the day, what is it all about? It's about being seen, it's about being heard, it's about being understood, right? And once you see that, then you have this open dialogue already. There are no obstacles or barriers no longer in the way, right? They're not looking at you like, what is, oh my God, she's like my mom's age. What is she going to know about this? It doesn't matter, because even if I don't know something, I have no problem asking them to tell me what that new trend is, that new cultural thing, or whatever the new, whatever is new for them and that we haven't known. And I think it's just seeing them, right? Like that makes such a big difference. And honestly, when you were talking about immigrants earlier, it's one of the things growing up is like, and I was a first generation born here, right? So my parents are immigrants. I don't know if that makes me second generation. I always thought it was first generation by being born in the country you're in, right? Like, so to balance what American culture is and what Armenian culture is, and to find where I belong in that with these two narratives that are going, right? It is extremely difficult to find you, the authentic you. And I don't think I was ever the authentic me, because I'm following narratives, right? You're what you're supposed to do. And if you don't, then there's certain consequences that follow, right? Or you might be an outcast or whatever it is. And as a kid, that's so terrifying, right? Because you don't, that's all you want is just to be there, to be loved, to be seen, right? So I think there's so many things that come into this, right? Especially for people who are new to a lot of things in a different country, whether it's America, whether it's a different country, people move all the time, but it's based, I feel like you have to break down that barrier of that judgment, of that fear, whatever it is that they may be holding to prevent them from attempting that, right? Because it really isn't easy, right? To be that vulnerable, to put yourself out there, and to then maybe be criticized, to then maybe be, judged, punished for it. And I honestly think it all comes down to that understanding, that intention of love, seeing that person, just try and understand them. I always say you don't have to agree with something just to understand it. And just giving people that opportunity, that safe space, makes the world of difference.
Mm. And it's a learned behavior.
Yeah, right, right. If I could talk to myself 20 years ago, it would be a totally different conversation than now, right? Yeah. And sometimes, unfortunately, time and experience is also necessary to achieve all that, right? But for the most part, if you set up a safe environment, an opportunity for people at whatever age, it makes the world of difference.
Mm. Go ahead, Matthew. Mm.
I do think what comes up is to not have judgment. It's very important. Um, we don't know. We don't need to know. We don't know whether if somebody's so insistent about eating all the food on their plate, if that was because two generations ago, their grandparents had nothing to do because they nothing to eat because they grew up in a war zone. We don't know that. Or we don't know if it's something else in their history when they were younger and there was no money in the family. Today, I had a lecture back from spring break for the students. Several of the students were tired. It's in the afternoon, but I know several of them are doing Ramadan right now.
Mm.
Some of them just flew back from being in Asia. Some of them probably partied too much last night on a Sunday. So the fact is that they're all tired and for different reasons. And I think that it's really important for us to have a discernment to recognize that they need some attention and we shouldn't be angry. We should have another break or just let them do what they need to do. But these are three very, very diverse reasons about why people may be in a certain mental or physical state. And we shouldn't just be thinking that, jumping to conclusions. And I think that's a really important part to create that container for allow people to manage themselves based on even their own understanding. Some people may have generational trauma, again, eating all their food that they're not even aware of, that it has never even been discussed in the family, but it's been passed down from generation to generation to generation. Um, so that's what comes to mind from this conversation on that.
Mhm. Wow. Yes. Wow. I like that because you're talking about not concluding, not assuming, not interpreting, thinking about possibilities of what's going on and keeping it open-ended about our view of what's happening with other people and also with ourselves. So Mary was talking about it's not easy to be authentic because you may be judged, you may be harshly punished or outcasted or defriended or. But but also I think mm, I don't know if it's been my kind of observation that also growing up, if somebody asks, what do you need? What do you want? Even as a grown up, somebody asks you, what do you need? What do you want? Like mm, I was, many, 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 over 20 years ago. 25 maybe years ago during my marriage, I went to a therapist and we were working on stuff, day after day after day. And my number one complaint was about my husband at the time. Yeah, he does this, he doesn't do this, he always does it. He. So she asked me, so if he wasn't in your life anymore, tomorrow you wake up, you're on your own, and what do you want? What are you gonna do? He's not there to cause all these issues and concerns and all that. What are you gonna do? And I literally had no idea. Just being caught up by the issues, caught up by whatever I didn't like. I had no time to even know what is it, what's the alternative, right? So I think humans knowing what's a good life as opposed to the bad life. What does it feel like to be attended to? If you've never been attended to, never really listened to, you've halfway been listened, you don't have a model of that to say this is exactly what I want, to even request these qualities that are good, that you are fighting for. You're fighting for the opposite of this harmony, but you don't even know what harmony feels like. That when you see it, when you experience it, you can actually be with it and enjoy it. You may be in front of harmonious interaction with somebody, but arguing with them. You can't even tell this person is actually listening to you. They're kind. They're not judging you. They're giving you a safe space. But you keep arguing, the person could be constantly arguing because in their head, they're just programmed like that. They're programmed to assume that I'm not being heard because they don't even know how it feels to be heard. So, when you talked about Mary, about being present with them, it may not be one round, it may not be one more, it may click in a moment that they get it, but they may not even, they may just keep going on and on and on and on, and they don't even know you're present with them. So I think these are, as we, trainers, coaches, therapists, teachers, those of us who have the opportunity to work with people, to observe and see what is it that they they're absorbing and what is it they're not absorbing, and bringing it to their attention, you know and letting them experience it. We have these 5 stages. Stage number 1 is whatever we want them to experience or learn or become good at. There needs to be a logic behind it and a reason and a benefit. If they see the benefit, they would become a little open to it. And then they have to experience it. What does it mean to actually be listened to? How does it feel? And then they could keep registering it to replace it with the faulty codes and faulty programming. You know, it takes time, but being aware of it and being able to name it, because we use language, right? Humans, we have language, and my goodness, even that's so problematic because a lot of it is different types of perceptions. But then putting a name on it, this is how it feels to be heard, to be listened to. Can you remember it? Can you, how does it feel? Maybe that's what you would look for. Maybe that's what you would provide for your friend, for your pet, for your toys. Even with your toys, you could be actually be with your toy in a way that if it could tell you that it appreciates you being with it in that way, you know, kind, considerate, and attentive to it. These are really, they're all skills. I mean, that's what I believe. And we could learn them by observing others do it or being told many different ways, right? Experiencing it, maybe drawing, stories, metaphors, analogies. All these things are very helpful to us humans. So,
It sounds like your therapist basically asked you the miracle question of what would be different, given whatever is that maybe it's your marriage, right? You woke up tomorrow, you're no longer married, whatever it is that obstacle is now away or out of the picture, right? What does this mean for you? And you notice that you hadn't even given yourself any thought at that point because everything was dependent on that marriage or him or his thoughts. So even to give you that question, right, kind of starts, okay, but what is it you want for yourself, right? It's now introducing a different way of thinking. Like if you're constantly stuck on the fear of what if this happens? What if that? And you go to the worst case scenario, right? And you're investing so much of your time and energy into these negative thoughts or these fears that might take over, right? And it's now allowing you to explore you, right? Or now, if you can have this level of thought, there's a whole polar opposite thought process that can go too, right? That exists, but you haven't been able to see, right? I don't know, maybe you're avoiding seeing it, maybe you haven't been given opportunity to see it, right? But if there is this, right, then the polar opposite of that can exist too. And it's now introducing or giving the freedom to see it or unveiling, right? Kind of like taking that divider off. And it's like, look, this is here too for you to see, for you to experience, for you to explore, understand. And it's no like set pace or anything, right? But it's now this unveiling of, look, there's this other side of it, right? And now you can I'm giving you the opportunity to see you, not who Dr. Motagi is in her marriage, in her relationship dynamic, and relative to who her husband is, but who she is as her own individual. And to finally be able to say, I can actually explore that.
Mm. Yeah.
And you're not selfish. You're not a horrible person. You're not a bad mother. You're not a bad wife. You're not a bad daughter. You're not, I feel like because now we're jumping into kind of like gender thing and I don't want to go there, but like, but women carry a lot of that pressure that's tied to that, right? You're expected to be a certain way when you're a mother, when you're a wife, when you're this, when you're that, and certain things kind of go by the wayside because then you feel guilty for being involved with yourself or it's considered selfish. There's so many things that come into this, right? But allowing people the opportunity to explore that. And I'm not saying it has to go anywhere past that at that point, but there is this. Did you ever see it? Or do you want to see it? It is
Mhm.
there. I can help you see it, but you have to want to.
Yeah. 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 For me, it was like passing on the responsibility for my happiness to myself. And then with that responsibility doesn't mean I know how,
Mm-hmm.
responsibility. But now, instead of putting it on somebody else, now I have to fully kind of take these things on and learn and make my own life effective, fulfilling, happy. Um, for myself to know how to, what to do. So um, I'm looking at time, and if either of you have one thing that you think it works really well when you tell your clients or students or people that it really actually does work. Anything comes to your mind about a skill or about anything that they might be open to. We can maybe close with that.
Yeah, I like to tell them that no matter what is showing up, it's there for a reason, and they're not bad people for having experienced that. Now we just want to understand it, and there's a way to work through it, right? But whatever shows up there's a cause and effect. And you're not the only person to experience this, and even if you are, it's okay, right? In your head, if you think you are, you have this opportunity now to understand it in a different way.
Mm. That's beautiful. Yeah, that's great.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mary. Matthew, what works for you?
So I think this discussion has been going in a nice path towards, again, taking off the mask, and there's some core themes here around guilt and shame that perhaps we can do another podcast on. Actually, I think guilt really is focused on the behaviors and actions, and shame is really on the identity. And we need to work on both of those things, because often the mask is trying to protect ourselves from that. And so, yeah, shame and guilt are big things. But related to that, and my big takeaway and what I try to talk to a lot of the people I work with is around forgiveness.
Mm.
And really, forgiveness for me is um, forgetting that there could be a different outcome in the past. Um, Forgiving your parents, they did the best they could. Forgiving yourself, and the more we can shift towards forgiving others and ourselves, the more we can move forward towards making it easier to be human.
Mm. That was a beautiful ending, closing. Thank you. Yeah, there's a lot to cover, a lot of different aspects, but we can leave our listeners, viewers with one thing that yes, it's not easy to be human, nobody's fault, and we could make it easier little by little, learning some skills and understandings about how things work and becoming more patient with ourselves and others could be helpful to us. So, with that, I'd like to say goodbye to everybody. Check out perfectlyhere.org for courses and other things you might find to learn. Mary Aroyan is a psychotherapist. She works with all different kinds of relationships in families, and seek her out. I'll put the link to your website, Mary, in the podcast in the description. And also, Matthew, thank you for all the work you do. Matthew is in the Netherlands, working with youth as a board member, as an advisor to both us and Perfectly Here and other organizations. Mary has also joined us at Perfectly Here as a board member. Thank you for that. And yeah, let's keep on developing ourselves and helping this world become a little easier for us, for everybody else. Thank you. Okay.